It is the end of summer. Finally! Hello, my friends. Finally, it is the end of summer, and this is just my favorite time of year. I love the end of summer. I love going into fall. It's just my favorite. You know what that means. It is time to throw on our sweaters and drink hot tea and finally wash away the 3 months worth of sunscreen slime off our skin. It's gonna be great. So in this video, I'm going to be recapping my summer TBR that I made a few months ago. So I'm gonna be telling you which books I read, which books I made an honest effort to read, and which books I just didn't read and honestly just kind of went out the window as soon as the list was published. And the books that I really honestly thought I would read, but then something else caught my squirrel eyeballs and it kind of went out the window when I saw something more interesting. I had some dumb reasons for wanting to read some of these books, and so that means I probably didn't actually want to read the book. And with so many books out there that are legitimately interesting to me, I don't think I can justify reading books that don't seem that interesting. I used to really have a hard time DNFing books, and spoiler, there is one of those in this video. So I'm working on my fall TBR list now, and I'm trying really hard to only put books on there that I legitimately want to read because I think they sound interesting, not because someone else says it's interesting or because I want to read the book for research. Like, is that a good reason to want to read a book? Not really. I'm not in college anymore. I don't need to research books. So for the books I did read and that I did talk about in another video, I will link those videos below so that you can go and check out my thoughts on those books if you're interested. But in this video, I'm just going to talk about what I read and didn't read off my summer TBR, and I'm going to talk about Something Wilder by Christina Lauren, which is the last book that I read off of the summer TBR list, and it didn't quite make my August reading wrap up. And I have some thoughts on that book, so we're going to talk about that in this video. So if you want to find out more about how I did with my very first summer TBR and some of my thoughts on Something Wilder by Christina Lauren, then just keep watching. So starting with my summer TBR recap, I talked about 11 books in my summer TBR video, and we're going to go through all of those plus one bonus book at the end. If you've been watching my channel since the beginning, which is not that long ago, then you'll probably know which book this is because I've talked about it a bunch of times. So out of the 11 books that I discussed, I read 4 of them. That is not good odds. The 4 books that I read were The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, The Layover by Lacie Waldon, and Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I discussed the first 3 in monthly wrap-ups, so I can link those below if you're interested. And then there are 2 books that I tried to read but didn't get very far. Those books were Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid and The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I read the beginnings of both of these books, but they just both didn't hook me in fast enough before I discovered something else that I thought seemed more interesting. I could have just picked them up at the wrong time and discovered other things that seemed interesting at the wrong time. So these are books that I definitely will come back to. So the books that I didn't pick up but still definitely intend to read are The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han and Nora Goes Off Script by Annabel Monaghan. So what's left? We have Sea of Tranquility, Every Summer After, and Conversations with Friends. And those 3 pretty much went out the window as soon as the list was published. So for Sea of Tranquility, I really did want to read that. Like, it did sound really interesting when I read the synopsis. I put Sea of Tranquility on the list right after I think I had read How to Stop Time or some of those other speculative style books. And so I was just really in like an introspective mood, and so I thought that synopsis sounded really interesting. But I think quickly after that I started getting more into mysteries. I discovered the books like Acts of Violet, and I just thought that sounded like so much more fun. So I guess the introspective ones kind of fell by the wayside, but it still does sound really beautiful, so I probably will read that one at some point, but it's not on my immediate TBR. Every Summer After I was reading purely because I know I hate the trope alternating timelines, and so I wanted to read it for research purposes. That's stupid. I don't know. Maybe I'll read that at some point if I change my opinion on that trope or narrative style, but for the time being, that one is also off my TBR. And the last one was Conversations with Friends. I noticed this one just because it is a new TV series, I believe, and people were talking about it. And honestly, it never sounded very interesting to me. And I was just going to read it so that I could talk about it and compare it to the TV series, which I don't really watch TV very much. So I would be forcing myself to watch the TV show too. So I don't know. That whole thing was just not a good idea. So basically, after I put together this list, I just started looking into new releases and found a whole bunch of books that sounded so much more interesting. So all of my grand plans on that I was going to like compare it to a TV show or read for research, all of that just blew up in my face. So yeah, I mean, some of these books may come back onto my TBR at some point, but probably not anytime soon. And I said there would be a bonus. And what is that bonus? It is none other than The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. Here we are again. I can't believe I'm not done talking about this book. I have been reading this book since like May. And I think the last time I mentioned it was in my July reading wrap up. And that was just to say that I had borrowed it from the library again and I was going to continue reading it. So I'm here to update that The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest is officially a DNF. I didn't touch it once the second time that I borrowed it. I even renewed it once, which means I had the book for 6 weeks and I didn't touch it once. At this point, I've had to return it and I'm not going to borrow it again. I mean, I guess if I ever wanted to finish the book, I would just read the ebook, but I just have no interest in finishing the book. My opinion on the book hasn't changed, obviously, because I haven't read any further. I stopped at about 2/3 of the way through the book, and at this point, I don't think it really matters if there is some wild, probably overcomplicated conclusion to the books. Just because it's taken too long for the plot to add up to anything. It's just been so wordy and so meandering, and it just feels like nothing is happening. So far, the book has just been misery to read, and I'm just over it. And that's sad to say, because The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was such a sensation, but the series went downhill real quick. Actually, I take that back. It didn't go downhill quickly. It was like this slow, imperceptible descent until before you know it, you're hearing the cockpit terrain warning going off and your plane has crashed into a hill. So that's the end of my journey with that book. So overall, I did a pretty bad job at selecting a TBR that I would actually read. I'm still getting to know myself and my reading tastes, so I'm hoping to do better next time at picking things that I would legitimately want to read, not just things that sound interesting in the moment and like stuff that I would want to read after the initial "that sounds interesting" kind of excitement wears off. So that is my wrap up on my summer TBR. So now let's talk. That's not it. Let's talk about Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. So this was the last book that I read off of my summer TBR list, and I didn't get to talk about it in my August reading wrap up because I filmed that video a little bit early. So I have mixed feelings about this book. I enjoyed some aspects of it, and other aspects were just infuriating. And we're gonna get into why. So to start, this book follows a woman named Lily. Lily lives in Utah and she runs a treasure hunting adventure business. It's basically a tourist attraction where she takes guests on a guided camping trip on horseback where they search for hidden planted treasure. It's like an escape room game, sort of. Lily does this because it pays the bill. Lily's father was a treasure hunter hunting for real treasure, but Lily is unsure if he ever found anything, really. So he passed away and left her all of his treasure maps, which she now uses to run her business. And the maps are the only thing she has left of him since he sold the family's ranch before he died. Lily had her whole life planned out. She was dating a guy named Leo, they were gonna get married, and they were gonna run the ranch together. That all went up in smoke when Leo received a phone call that his mother was in an accident. He said he was gonna go home and take care of his family for a few days, and that he would call Lily when he landed, and that he'd be back. Well, no surprise, he didn't call, and he never came back. He just disappeared. That was like 7 years ago. So it's now 7 years later. Lily is disappointed in the direction her life has taken, but she's getting along okay. Until one day, she gets a new group of guests. Who do we think it is? It is Leo, who is on a boys' trip with 3 idiot friends for something. I don't know, bachelor party, whatever dumb things men do. So they show up, and Lily can immediately tell at least one of them is trouble. Not to mention, she's just weirded out by seeing Leo again after all these years after he ghosted her. But nonetheless, Lily is trying to be a professional, so Lily, her assistant, and these 4 men set off on horseback into the wilderness to go through the motions of doing this treasure hunt. But things get real when one of the men reveals that he's not on this trip for genuine reasons. So up until this point, it seemed like this was going to be a kind of run-of-the-mill second chance romance, especially knowing what Christina Lauren typically writes about. But after this reveal, things take a hard right turn. I don't want to spoil exactly what this guy was doing or what he was like, because I feel like that would spoil too much for people who actually do want to read the book. But I'll just say, he is the sort of man that you just want to puncture. The kind of man who is being annoying and dangerous at the same time. One of the things that drew me to this book in the first place was that it was said to have a romantic element, as all Christina Lauren books do, but that the romance wasn't the entire plot. Like, there were other things going on besides just the relationship. That sounded great to me, because at the time I discovered this, I had just come off of a train of rom-coms and I was a little bit burnt out. And then, as you may remember, the Unhoneymooners was also on my summer TBR, so at some point later I did read that one as well, and it was fine. Everything was pretty much as expected. It was nothing spectacular. I definitely appreciate that this story had things going on outside of the rekindling of the relationship. And so I really did like the ratio of romance plot to other plot, which I would put at about 25-75. So 25% romance and 75% other things, life things happening. So as for the couple themselves, Lily and Leo, I thought they were a strange pairing. It seemed like neither of them really knew themselves when they were together back in the day, but they were really trying to fit themselves together because they were young. And now they've grown into 2 extremely different full adults. And I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to reconcile their differences. So I don't know how long their romance is going to last past the end of this book. I don't know if that's like really none of my business how long their romance lasts past the end of the book, but it just feels like it kind of kills it a little bit. Like, the purpose of this book is to like believe in love again, and to end a book where they're happy at that point, but I don't foresee them really having a lasting relationship. That's a little sad. Like, that doesn't make me believe in love. So I don't know. So maybe other people have a different opinion on that, but that's just one thing I noticed. They just didn't have great chemistry, in my opinion. In terms of my overall enjoyment, I would give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. There were 2 things that I noticed in both this book and the Unhoneymooners. So they might just be common things in Christina Lauren books. The first thing is that the story somewhat just feels half-baked. It's not that the story doesn't come to a logical end. It's that the path taken to get there, and by there I mean like the happily ever after, feels a bit rushed. And so maybe that's why, like what I was saying previously about feeling like this particular couple isn't going to last beyond the end of the book, maybe that's why. It's hard to say, because I think I also did just say that I really appreciated the fact that there wasn't so much of the romance and there were other things going on. But just in this case, I felt like they were so different that in order to believe in their relationship, we needed to have more of them connecting and like working through things, because I don't foresee them really getting along. And so I guess that's kind of what makes this particular story feel half-baked to me. Like, we needed more discussion of their relationship for me to really believe in it. But I did just say that I appreciated that we didn't focus on their relationship too much. I don't know. I think maybe the problem was just their relationship. Maybe I probably would like this style and ratio of narrative with a different couple, but I guess I just don't think it really worked with Lily and Leo. The second thing, and this could be specific to me, but it feels like the conflicts in both of these books relied on men being POSs, but who didn't think they were being POSs. Women know this kind of man, the kind of man who does crappy things constantly but doesn't even realize it that he's doing crappy things because that's just who he is. It's like the boys will be boys mentality, that you almost expect this kind of behavior, and after it's been tolerated for so long, men just think this is normal man behavior. Like all of the assumptions that all women are liars, gold diggers, and should be thankful for a man's attention. These are the traits that I felt defined the conflict man in both of these stories. And I guess I just find it not really enjoyable to read about. There's a lot more that I could say about the particular conflict man in Something Wilder, but I feel like it would be giving away too much of the plot if I say what exactly he was up to. But just know, he's not a good guy, and he's not the kind of guy you want around you. I guess I don't know what else to say about that. Like, you'll know what I mean. Hi, editing me here. I didn't make myself really clear in what I was trying to explain here. I think I got a little bit off topic when I was recording. But so basically what I'm trying to say here is that the conflict in both of the stories, Something Wilder and the Unhoneymooners, relied on men behaving badly. And like that was the conflict. And I guess I just see enough of men behaving badly in real life and on the news that I don't really need any more of it in a romance book. So I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Just that I don't appreciate the fact that all of the conflicts relied on men behaving badly. I would like it more if there were other conflicts involving other things that were not just about the men doing men things that they think is okay but is clearly not okay. Does that make sense? Okay, sending it back. So I do want to read at least one more Christina Lauren book. Maybe Love in Other Words, although I've heard things about that one too, so yeah, we'll see. So that's my update on how I did with my summer TBR. Not the best, but striving for better this fall. Like I said before, I'm getting to know my taste better the more that I read, so that should probably help. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, what's your favorite book you read this summer? That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill